Hi, this is Clint Holly from Well Made Music. Today I'm going to talk to you about one of the main pieces of a VMS 70 mastering lathe, and in fact, a part of many Neumann mastering systems out there in the world today. And that's the motor. The motor that drives the platter and the turntable is a very heavy, robust unit made by a company called Lyric, and that's Lyric. And Lyric is a company that's based in Denmark, and they specialize in making motors and other drive systems. This motor here, the model number of it is SM8, and these went into production around 1955 for Neumann cutting systems, and they stayed in production until about 1976. So every Neumann lathe that was made between the mid 1950s and the mid 1970s had a motor like this. Now, what's special about this kind of motor is that it's called a synchronous motor, and what that means is that it synchronizes itself. It locks into the frequency of the wall frequency, the power, the AC power. The AC power is alternating current, meaning that it switches between a positive and a negative, and it does that in the United States at 60 times per second. So we call this a 60 hertz motor. In the rest of the world, many electrical systems are 50 hertz. So if you have a motor from Europe or other places, it's more than likely it's a 50 hertz motor. This one in particular is a 60 hertz motor. These motors are very robust. They have a large casting here. This cradle actually holds the motor in suspension above the floor. It doesn't ride on the floor. These little knobs here allow you to bring the motor up off the floor and level it out inside this cradle here, so you don't catch any rumble or anything like that from a motor sitting directly on the floor. There's very few pieces inside the motor. There's really only like the 3 sets of coils or windings in there, and those represent the different speeds that the motor can run at. You have 33, 45, and 78, and then their half speed variations, 16 and 2/3, 22 and a half, and I don't think there's a half speed for 78, so I won't even try and do the calculation on that. For the Neumann systems, these were used in every system, I think, from the AM32B all the way up to the VMS 70. These usually weigh in at about a little over 100 pounds, and they're kind of hard to move around, but they sit on the floor. They're suspended above the floor in this cradle, and you can see that it's attached to the lathe with these rubber couplings. There's one coupling at the bottom and one coupling at the top. And what these do is that it allows that rubber to absorb some of the vibration that comes from the motor as it goes up through this drive shaft, up to this main platter, a bearing assembly, and then to the big platter ring and the cap, aluminum cap that goes on top. This whole cap and ring all weighs in at probably somewhere close to 70 pounds or so. So it takes a lot of force to get this going, and the motor itself has a start function to it, but really it's just kind of easiest to turn the power onto the motor and then give it a spin by hand, and you can actually hear and see it lock in at 33 RPM here. Now, there have been some modern advancements in motor technology over the decades. Techniques made a motor back in the 1970s that's a direct drive replacement for the Lyric motor. Those are really hard to find and very expensive. And there's a few people out there in the world trying to come up with modern solutions. But by and large, most Neumann systems you're going to find out there in operation are still using these amazing and robust motors developed in the 1950s. Well, we're back in the warehouse talking about Lyric motors, and you can see we have a few backup motors here. We like spare parts here at Well Made Music. All of this gear is old vintage stuff, so it's always really nice to have some spares in-house to make sure we have zero downtime. And so we have a Lyric here that's out of its cradle. That cradle had just recently gone to powder coating, and so we're going to probably put some new bearings in this motor and clean it up and rehab it so it's as good as new. This is a motor here that came out of a machine that we bought from Sumo Recording in Cleveland, Ohio. You can see it's fairly clean, and when you spin it, it spins really nice. It seems like somebody might have put new bearings in this at some point because it does spin so nice. If you're ever out there in the world and you find a motor like this, try and give it a spin and see what happens. If it's locked up, there's usually an indication that the bearings are bad or maybe that it's a little bit rusty. But if you do find one of those in a barn somewhere, be sure and call Well Made Music. Okay, so talking more about Lyric motors today. This is the 5th motor that we have in stock here at Well Made Music. And this came from a recent lathe acquisition, and you can see we have it out of its cradle right now. A few interesting things about how these are set up. I talked earlier about this cradle and how the motor is suspended above the floor. So what we're in the process of doing right now is rehabbing this one. You can see all of these studs that come out of the main motor casting, I guess, if you will. Those studs all fit through one of these holes here, and then there is a series of there's hardware that actually allows you to attach the motor to the casting, and these knurled nuts right here allow you to raise that motor up off the floor and make it level when you attach it to the lathe. Part of the hardware system is another vibration dampening idea, and so you have these plates right here that go on the casting like that. The screw goes on the stud like that, and then you find some kind of absorbent material that goes inside this here, and that allows the motor to ride in this cradle without any additional vibration.